we all know war is miserable. There's also some good times, but we're not talking about that today. We're going to be talking about some of the worst times I ever had in a war zone. To start things off with a quote, every war is different, every war is the same, and that includes being miserable. I'm gonna bring it back to Syria a couple years ago when I was there, joining the YPG, and it was my first deployment, self-deployment. First 2 months was starvation training. Starvation training was very fun. Wouldn't recommend that. It was very bad for my body. As you can see here, this is 2 months into being in Syria. Compared to myself now, I lost a lot of weight. And the reason being is that when you were in a war, every war that I've been in, the opposing side likes to take a toll on the civilian populace and the civilian infrastructure and their livelihood. So in Syria back then, ISIS and Turkey would like to destroy the crops that the Syrians were making to make naan and to make other necessities. So our protein intake consisted of only lentil soup. We had no eggs most of the time. We had no meat at all whatsoever. We didn't even have canned meat. All that was being sent to the front line, and we were just left with nothing. Lentil soup. And the problem for me was that I couldn't digest lentil soup. My stomach doesn't do that. So I would just eat it to feel full, but I wouldn't get any nutrition from it. So then we were just left with carbs, and the carbs that we did have went moldy very, very quickly. So we would get a shipment of naan every week or so. And the first day would be awesome. It was fresh naan straight from the oven. But as soon as the next day rolled around and all the flies got to it and all the heat and the moisture, it would go moldy or stale. And by day 2, it would be almost worthless, and you would have to eat it. You get sick to your stomach, but you'd eat it anyway. And I remember very distinctly, one of my favorite snacks was taking this moldy naan, trying to get out the moldy parts of it, then wrap it up. It would crack away like crackers because it was just stale. And then I'd put some sugar on it, and that'd be my snack. That'd be like a lot of my nutrition was just this moldy sugar naan. The next one was more of a mental toll for myself, and I know for others, I don't want to speak for them, but being so close to the fight and not being able to fight. So in Syria, I never saw combat. Yeah, we came close to some stuff, but like I never went to the front line. And I gave up 7 months of my time in order to help them on the front line as a prior Marine. And for other people who had given up everything, they actually came back home after Syria and went to prison as a terrorist. You know, like a lot of these people gave up absolutely everything. They gave up their futures to join here and fight. And they didn't allow us to, for most of us. So did not like that part of it. I was burdened with the fact that I will probably not be deployed, and all this was for nothing, for lack of better words. So beyond Syria, we had Iraq, and this was about 1.5 years later. I went there with a very similar group called the YBS, living in tunnels, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, as you can imagine, being a caveman, yeah, there's some bad times during that. You have to dig the caves. And I've got a lot for Iraq, so let's just get started with it. FireWatch. When you are on guard duty at FireWatch, you don't have many people. Not many people join the YBS to live in tunnels, believe it or not. So when you have 2 bases, the down base and then the operations base, you only have like 3-4 people max at a time up there. And considering that you have ISIS patrolling around and you have these Turkish invasion threats all the time, you have to have 24/7 guard duty, which means at nighttime, and you have 4 people, how long are your shifts? And this went on for 13 months. You have to do a 2.5-hour or 3-hour shift at night, every single night, just sitting there waiting for an invasion. That never came. So yeah, I mean, there's some times where it's useful. I mean, there's some times where, yeah, we need to be on watch, but most of the time it's just sitting there with mosquitoes biting you in the heat, kind of losing your mind, hearing echoes in the tunnels, wondering, is it happening? And oh man, did not like that. Yeah, being a caveman, not very sanitary. You have to remember there's ticks everywhere. The drinking water that we had was potable once they gave us potable water, but before that, for the longest time, we were drinking out of a stream that was completely filthy. It had old rags in it, it had like plastic potato chip bags in it. It was just a stream that was filthy. So here's how it looks like now. But it took getting a lot of this shit out. Really heavy with the water. It's all good though. That was our drinking water. And we had purification tablets for a bit, but then those ran out. We didn't have access to them anymore because we're in the middle of nowhere, in this like remote, completely remote desert wasteland pretty much, with awesome people, but a desert wasteland. Anyway, we got very sick, especially myself. I had a flu or a stomach problem for like the entire duration. It was insane. And you know, obviously the shower situation in the tunnels, non-existent. You're gonna pour water on your head with some shampoo, mix it up, and that'll be your shower. But when it's really cold, like snowing in a rock, which happens, you're not gonna be able to do that. Or when you're stuck up there for longer than a week and it turns out you have to be there for a month, 2 months, 4 months. It's all based on what you brought with you for that week trip. And I hope you brought enough.
Through, buddy. Fuck. It's complete whiteout conditions.
The next one I want to say is digging tunnels. Digging tunnels was kind of fun. You're with all your friends. You're all sharing the pain of having to carry these wheelbarrows of rocks and having to deal with explosives and digging for a month straight. But it was so difficult.
Sam, I'm gonna send this to the university. Was that the last load? Is that the last load or not?
Yeah. No, I mean, no, I think that should be the last one.
Yeah, well, let's get to it.
So this entire time that you're digging tunnels, you want to make sure that you're staying within the tunnels, in the humid, hot tunnels. Because if you go outside, then the drones can see you, and there's constant drone surveillance, which we're going to get into. You have to dig it all inside. You're sweating your ass off. You're drinking hot chai, because the Kurds only drink hot chai. It doesn't matter what month it is. So that's your only replenishment of of water. And it's backbreaking work. It's wheelbarrows. At the end of it, my forearms were huge. It was the biggest I've ever had them. And yeah, that kicked my ass. I mean, everybody lost a lot of weight during that. There was one time we did it for a month straight. And it was in the summer month. I think it was July. And yeah, insane. And again, with Iraq, the contract length, this was a big issue that we had in YPG as well, but also in Iraq. So it's 8 months, if you're lucky. Most of the time, for myself included, it was many months later that we would actually be able to leave, because the entire Shengal mountain range is surrounded by multiple layers of these factions that do not want you to escape and they consider you an enemy. So you have the Turkish drone threat, constant.
Oh, and a bigger plane coming from a different direction. Okay, well the invasion might be happening. I'm gonna head in now.
You have the Peshmerga, which are holding one side, and then the Iraqi army on the other. Sometimes you get along with some of those guys, but other times they will arrest you. And then you have ISIS just everywhere, and you don't know where they are because it's all sleeper cells. So it was very difficult to get us out. So after 8 months, I kept promising my family, hey, I plan to get back in a month or something. I was giving myself a little bit of leeway, but it turned out to be 5 months. And by the time that the 5 months came up, and I was finally gotten out of Iraq, and a lot of people lost their minds waiting for their contract to end, and some people actually ran away, deserted. By that time, I had gotten to the airport, and the war in Ukraine starts. I was like, well, I'm going there now. So, yeah, the contract length kind of gets in your head a little bit. And I was talking about the drones. I'm gonna say it again: constant fear of death. The drones were 24/7, just like in Ukraine on the front line, where there's just Orlans all over the place, and they're watching you, and there's Mavics and all these things. The Turkish military was doing that to us, and it was constant, 24/7 for a whole year. 24/7. I don't think people understand like what I mean by that. Like, you can hear the buzzing. You constantly wonder, is it my day? Is it my time? Because a lot of the friends around us ended up having their time be when we were most worried, and it wasn't us for some reason.
It's down over there. See on the hill. See it? Hill Charlie.
You hear booms or some random shepherds that you don't know end up walking into the tunnels. You're like, what the hell is going on?
I see the big one.
Very miserable, I would say. I mean, you get miserable from it. You're just like, I need to go into the tunnels again. Here's a drone, and it really plays on you. And they command everything that you're gonna do. The drones in the air dictate where you are going to be, and it's like, you can't just brush it off. And beyond Iraq, we have Ukraine, where most recently the most miserable thing has been the weather. Believe it or not, Ukraine has some crazy weather, just like Iraq. Didn't mention that in the Iraq portion, but 40 Celsius. This was a week ago, and it's been like this for a while. We actually just had the first rain. Now I'm rejuvenated to make a video, but yeah, it's been really miserable. A lot of flies, a lot of bugs, just like Iraq. A lot of like things that just want to sting you. And with that weather brings allergies. And for myself, being allergic to grass doesn't help. Ukraine isn't really able to go and cut all the grass right now because there's a lot of mines everywhere. And because of that, there's a lot of weeds that grow, a lot of allergies. You know, it paints a picture for you. I've constantly got bronchitis or some form of it. And it's just, it sucks. And just like Iraq, we have the fear of death all the time. No matter where you are in Ukraine, you always had that fear that maybe there's gonna be a missile strike. Probably won't hit you, but it might. Maybe they're watching for you. Maybe you're like a high value target. Maybe you have a social media platform and maybe the Russians want to kill you. Who knows? I don't know, it just gets in your head a little bit. The fear of death all the time. There's drones everywhere too, especially in the front line, but even deeper in Ukraine. There's always something happening in your region. You're gonna hear air raid alarms and you never really have a waking moment where you're not kind of a little on edge. Like, where am I gonna go if something happens? And just like Iraq, the digging portion, I only did 2 days. So nothing to write home about, but very, very miserable, and it's a part of your job. If you want to live, if you want to have a hole that you can hide in on the front line, you gotta dig it. And when you dig it, there might be a little bit of artillery. There might be some drones trying to kill you. There's a lot of things trying to kill you as you're digging, and it's 40 Celsius, and you're shirtless, or maybe you put on armor. So you have that time crunch as well as the constant threat of death. It's just a part of being a Ukraine frontline dude. And the next one I would say about Ukraine is that you don't really have time to yourself. So a lot of the places that you're going, either it's your frontline position or back in the rear, you're constantly with other people. For myself, I enjoy a little bit of that, you know, but I do need my alone time because I have other things I need to do. I have merchandise that I want to sort of tell people about. I have a YouTube channel that I'm talking to right now. I need to edit videos. I need to keep up with my family, my friends, where I'm going to next. I need to make plans for the future. And I can't really do that when I'm constantly surrounded by people that might need my attention at that point, which takes absolute precedence. If you guys haven't noticed, I haven't posted a video in like 2 weeks. This is the reason. I'm working my ass off on the different jobs that I have here in Ukraine. And it's hard to find alone time and time to go and work on these things. And overall, I would say that Ukraine is probably one of the more comfortable wars to be in, not because the combat is the most intense I've ever experienced, but the best part about it is that within an hour from the front line, you can be in a relatively safe Western style city, and you can enjoy some hot food, and you can enjoy a nice hotel and people that kind of understand you. Whereas in Iraq and Syria, it was different language, different everything. You don't really have a hotel out there. There's constant threats. Ukraine is a little different that way. So I do like the rotations there. They give you time off. And when it is your time off, you get to come to a nice city and relax. So that's the time off. But when it's time to do your job, I mean, this goes for every war, but especially Ukraine, a lot of death, and it weighs on you, and you get like all sorts of different emotions. You get sad, but the sadness and grief goes away pretty quick, and you just want revenge. As a soldier, you want revenge. You want to get back at the Russians for that, but it just keeps adding up. And for every war that I mentioned here, I was on the underdog side. Ukraine, the underdog. The YPG, underdog. YBS, underdog. It just sucks. It's like you're constantly fighting, and no matter how much you do or contribute to the war, it's not enough sometimes, and sometimes you just hold the line, and that's enough. I don't know, I've been in Ukraine longer than any war that I've been in. So yeah, it takes a toll. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. And again, for every war, you don't always have internet to go and text your loved ones or keep up with what's happening. When I have some uptime, I'd like to go and text some people, but you don't always have that option. Russia likes to bomb the electricity lines here all the time, the power station. And same in Iraq, same in Syria. Especially Syria, I barely had any internet service at all. And if I did, it was gonna cost me a lot because I didn't have the SIM card from there. You get over it pretty quick, I guess. So that's about it, guys. I hope you learned something. You know, I'm sharing this video not to go make everybody sad or anything. I just wanna share some of the worst times that you can have in the military, because I think a lot of people highlight like the successes or the best moments or maybe the craziest combat. There's a lot of miserable times there too.
What's up, buddy?
They're still bombing.
We're still bombing. All right, get inside.
But I just want to talk about the things that you would encounter in daily life more so than the stuff that you would probably imagine to be the most miserable. Getting shelled. Okay. So anyway, thanks for listening. I appreciate you guys all a lot. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.